Very good evening and welcome to the Boxing Day edition of Vogan's European Outlook. I'm wearing a Christmas jumper that was a present, and I wonder, what did you get for Christmas? Was Santa good to you? I would be curious to know in the comments section below. Did you enjoy the festivities of yesterday? Eating a little bit too much? Certainly it's fairly tame here in the Vogan household, it must be said. It was a thoroughly enjoyable day, nice and relaxing, I have to admit as well. But it was a big day here on the channel. It was the January Outlook that was released last evening. I hope you've had a chance to have a look at that, digest what was said. And like I said in yesterday's video, it was a reasonably bold call with regards to a below average January, and the persistency in that cold pattern may be something that we've not seen really in a little while here in the UK in terms of a persistent cold pattern. But we'll wait and see what happens. There is no guarantees. There is a lot of complexities. There is a lot of, and elements where it could go either way, really, based on finer details going on around other parts of the Northern Hemisphere. Everything really has to come together. And I think it's going to be average to slightly below average when the month pans out. But it was anything but cold during the Christmas Eve and pretty much through Christmas Day itself. A record warm start to Christmas Day, far cry from 2010, may I add, but Kinloss dropping to 11.9 Celsius and Killowen in County Down also recording a Northern Ireland record for minimum temperatures. So Met Office, it's been the mildest start to Christmas Day on record for Northern Ireland and Scotland. Highest daily minimum temperature on record for Christmas Day have been broken in Scotland and Northern Ireland. That's for the 24-hour period ending 9 a.m. on Christmas morning. And then we obviously had a rather mild Christmas Eve. 15.2 was recorded in northern UK. Here at the house, it was 14 Celsius on the dot, and very, very mild for Christmas Eve and even Christmas Day. I think we exceeded 12 Celsius here at the house. So Christmas Day maximums 14.2 at Dice, Aberdeen, 13.8 at Durham, Killowen 12.6, and Usk in southeast Wales 13.9 Celsius. Where did we see snow? Well, in the run up to Christmas anyway, we've seen the Swiss Alps get a significant amount, upwards of 244 centimetres fallen. Granted, it was at an elevation of over 2,500 metres above sea level, but nonetheless, very impressive snowfall. New snow 24 hour, as much as 119 inches or centimetres at this one particular location. These are all stations in excess of 2,000 metres above sea level, 114 at Grand Corps. And then you can see here, anywhere kind of from as much as 39 centimetres to in excess of 100 centimetres of snow. In terms of exceptional warmth for Scotland and Norway, minimum temperatures 10-12 Celsius, maximums as high as 16 Celsius, according to Maximiliano Herrera. An insanely warm Christmas, hottest December temperatures in history for some locations within Scotland. 14.3 at Wick. We had the 13.6 at Kirkwall and 13.1 at Farisle. Which is rather interesting given the fact that I think the maximum was 14.2, so I'm not quite 100% sure about that 14.1 at Wick. But nonetheless, very, very mild conditions indeed. In terms of the temperatures, we are still reasonably mild across the board. We did have temperatures cooler across more England and Wales as opposed to northern UK, where we've still got the temperatures around the double digits around the Glasgow area at the time of recording, which is just before 6 p.m. this Boxing Day. 11 Celsius in the southwest of Ireland. Also, looking at the latest radar imagery here, we do have a frontal system draped across northern Scotland. Therefore, we're seeing outbreaks of rain developing through the Central Highlands and also the Northwest Highlands. We've got kind of two bands of rain, as can be seen here on radar. And looking at the pressure chart of the Met Office model, we've got this frontal system between the high to the south and the low up towards Iceland. We've got this boundary, and that is where we're seeing rain breaking out. But also we're seeing this slightly cooler air to the north of that frontal system. Looking at the temperature temperatures at 8:50 according to the ECMWF model here. This is as of 12 UTC today, Thursday 26th. We've got 10 Celsius over the southeast of England here. Despite that, we've actually got cooler air underneath this air mass. We've got a bit of an inversion. We've got higher pressure. We've got more settled conditions, whereas further north, we've had a steady west-southwesterly airflow running along that frontal system, fairly gusty winds. But notice here that we've got some colder air to the north and that milder air to the south. Quite a contrast in the 850s over the UK, depending on whether you're in the far north or the far south of the country. Looking at the overview of the same model, the ECMWF, we've got this boundary that is kind of draped across the north. There's an area of low pressure. And we do have changes coming up, by the way. As this area of low pressure kind of fades and sinks to the south, we've got another one running the boundary between the cold of the north and the high to the south and the mild conditions to the south. We've got this draped boundary. But what's going to happen is this area of low pressure will develop, run the boundary between the two air masses. And once that system then moves through, we've got another system develops. And according to the ECM model, this feature here, as we move through the weekend and into early portions of next week, this is Monday the 30th, we could see this system deepen quite rapidly and become quite stormy as we move through the early portions of next week. Notice here that we're starting to see wintry precipitation. If we go to the 850s for this very same time frame, 21 UTC on Monday, you can see here the cold air just to the north of the circulation, slightly less mild compared to what we've got now across the south of the UK. But go back to the overview and watch what happens as we play through this sequence. Now, obviously, depth, exact position will vary depending on what model you're looking at. But according to the ECM model, we've got a lot of cold air to the north here between low pressure over the far north of Europe versus high pressure at 1038 over Greenland. That means we've got a northerly airflow between these two systems. And it's as we see this area of low pressure deepen, it's actually going to kind of pull some of that cold to the north down into the northern UK, and we could see significant snow breaking out. Now, again, this is a long way out. We're only on Thursday of this week. We're talking about Monday, Tuesday of next week. So again, we cannot take this as gospel, but this is one solution of a few different solutions. We'll look at the GFS in just a second. But play through this loop here. That area of low pressure continues to deepen to around the 984, 985 millibars. And it's once this system then pulls eastwards, we open the floodgates to that Arctic air that's lurking just to the north. And really, it's over the next several days, into the weekend, into early next week. It's lurking just to the north of Scotland. But it's as this system deepens, then we kind of start to see the colder air digging southwards. There's another area of low pressure across southern UK. So we could see significant snow across the north, significant snow across the south here. But it's a very, very fine call. This is not hyping things up. I'm showing you the different solutions. But if we look at the snow projections of this same model, it's indicating some significant amounts of snow across the far north initially, then across the far south afterwards as that secondary low runs. Now notice here, this is Monday, 15 UTC. Look at how the snows build up. But it's Central Highland northwards, nothing across the south, but then that next area of low pressure moves through. You notice here we've got a swath of two significant snows, north and south, generally South Midlands into the interior. South, it looks as if it's staying generally to the north of the south coast. But that's interesting. So Tuesday this would be for the first one, Thursday for the second one. Let's have a quick look at the GFS model and see what it's indicating regarding this overall solution here. So just bear with me a little second here. Let's go back to the overview chart. Back to the here and now. We've got that boundary draped across the north. We're kind of slightly looking at a closer up view of this. This is Sunday 29th. Then we've got the feature runs through, not as deep as the ECMWF. There's the main feature then moving in. Yeah, it's actually showing very similar. Notice the centre of the low, it's slightly further north, which means we've got more in the way of heavy rainfall through the Central Belt, Central Highlands. It's really across the far north that the GFS is indicating that heavy snowfall. So again, the details are very important, but this is just giving you an overall scenario of possibilities for next week. This is not a forecast. This is not me saying this is exactly what's going to happen. But as that area of low pressure deepens to 969 millibars, if you notice, through southern Norway and Sweden, we do have the colder that digs southwards here, and then higher pressure builds in. Now, if there's snow on the ground with high pressure building in, could turn obviously pretty darn cold. Let's have a look and see what the snow projections are of this same model and see what it's showing. So back to the here now, no snow obviously to speak about. Even Cairngorm, Summit, Ben Macdui, Ben Nevis, zero snow over the last couple of days. It's just been too mild. Play through the loop, you can see here that we pick up on some snow generally from Aviemore northwards here, not anywhere near as much as the ECM model is indicating. And then you notice it starts to spread some snow cover over high ground across southern Scotland, northern England. Continue to play through. It's not picking up in that southern system like the ECMWF model is showing. So again, we're going to look at this day by day, see what the models are indicating. It turns colder, and for how long, all open to question. But this is going to be an interesting scenario going forward. Looking at both the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, both according to the ECM and the GFS, indicating it's going to go firmly negative. So the Arctic Oscillation is projected to go very deeply negative as we move into the first week to 2 weeks of January. Therefore, we're going to start to see the cold getting released south into the middle latitude pattern. The NAO is going negative as well. So we certainly look as if we're on board with this colder theme. Again, it all has to be taken into context. We don't know the details in terms of how strong, how long the cold is going to be. Remember, the January outlook is an overall assessment of what I think is going to happen, but there is no steady, fast guarantee of anything here. Let's look at the Mann-Julian Oscillation, expected to go into phases 7. We're still in phase 6, remember, but over the next 5 days, there is the ECM is indicating that within the next 5 days, we'll go from phase 6 into phase 7, relatively amplified, so that's away from the inner circle. The null phase, less active and less influential when the MJO is in that null phase, that inner circle. But it's expected to go into a relatively amplified phase 7 over the next 5 days. The little pinky colours show phase 7 and day 5. Nice correlation there. And then it's expected to rotate in a slightly weaker fashion into phases 8. Phases 7 and phases 8 and even phases 1 are cold phases. And you would expect to see the Arctic Oscillation going negative along with the AO and the NAO, should I say, and that is exactly what it's indicating here. So this is the NAO, this is the AO, matches up very nicely with the projections of the modelling with regards to the Mann-Julian Oscillation. So looking at the latest of the GFS regarding the 10 millibar level here, so this is the temperatures at the upper levels of the stratosphere, fairly robust, fairly strong PV at the moment. Then it looks as if we're going to see some steady stretching and weakening of the PV as we move out of the month of December into the month of January. Now, as heights rise over the Arctic region, that's what causes the frictional effect on the strat circulation, and that is what the GFS is indicating. Look at the strong warming that's taking place over Eurasia here. And then as we move towards the end of week 1, yes, the core is still quite strong and quite cold at minus 86. But look at the level of warming and look at how it's getting displaced away from the axis, away from the pole itself. Then we've got some very strong warming that takes place as we move towards the beginning of week 2 of January. And this is what's a very interesting one. We're seeing warming take place over eastern North America, the North Atlantic, towards the polar vortex, while we've got the strongest warming over the Asia side of the pole. Now, when you start to see warming taking place from both sides and towards the circulation core, you start to see this little kind of bend in between. That is indicating that it's trying to sniff out some sort of a split in the polar vortex. Now, this may lead to nothing, but certainly that is the most interesting look in terms of weakening of the polar vortex I've seen, yes, this far so far. And it's very, very intriguing that to see the fact that we're seeing the warming taking place from both Pacific as well as the Asian side, or the Atlantic side versus the Asian side, I should say. But you can see here that we've got this core of PV going into the North America and another core going into Europe. That is very, very intriguing indeed. But we'll wait and see what happens. We'll not get too excited just yet in terms, because this could be lost in no time. But we've got some strong high latitude blocking developing. That is likely to cause this weakening of the polar vortex. If we look at the GFS ensemble here for the upcoming 5 days, it's we've got reasonably low heights within the Arctic region, but we do have strong positives. Eastern Canada up into the Canadian archipelago. We've also got some very strong positives over the UK and over Europe. So generally still relatively mild in the run-up to the new year. And then as that system moves across the UK during the course of early to mid next week, that is when things are going to change. And if you notice here in the 6 to 10 day, we're starting to see changes taking place in the upper levels. Then into the day, well, it's still updating, but this is the day 9 through 13. We've got this positive to the west extending up into Greenland. We've got generally positive heights up into the Arctic region. We've got a negative over eastern North America. Still, that high is fairly close to the UK and Ireland, so you would want to see that a little bit further west, as well as poking up towards Greenland in terms of opening the Arctic door. So again, lots of details that still need to be ironed out, but very, very intriguing nonetheless. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. Back tomorrow with more, so stay tuned, like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with the very latest update. Do check out the January Outlook at your leisure. There is a link in the description below, and check out the video from yesterday as well, where I talk a little bit more in depth with regards to the January projections. So enjoy the rest of your Boxing Day. See you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.